Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to the PCOS Revolution Podcast. I am so excited today because I have a very special guest here, and her name is Mariza Snyder. Now, Dr. Snyder is a functional practitioner, and you might have recognized some of her books, the newest one being the Essential Oils Hormone Solution, which is a national bestseller. And she also has several other books focused on balancing hormones with the power of essential oils. And also she has an Amazon #1 bestseller called The Smart Mom's Guide to Essential Oils. Now, for the past 10 years, Dr. Snyder has lectured at wellness centers, conferences, and corporations on hormone health, essential oils, nutrition, and detoxification. And she's also been featured on Dr. Oz, Fox News Health, Oprah Magazine, Mind Body Green, and many publications. Now, Dr. Mariza is also the host of the Essentially You podcast, a fabulous podcast. You should all check it out. And it's designed to empower women to become the CEO of their health. You can also check out her website, which we'll be listing in our show notes as well, at drmariza.com. So welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I am so happy to be here on this beautiful day.
So tell me about what inspired you to really get into women's health and also go into the field of essential oils.
Absolutely. Such a great question. So my interest in women's health really happened about 10 to 11 years ago. So funny because as the years go by, I'm like, okay, now it's been 10 years and 11 years. So about 10 to 11 years ago, when I was 29, 30 years old, and I basically crashed and burned. I had chronic fatigue, and it was a kind of chronic fatigue where I could barely get up out of bed every single day. It was just enough energy to get up, to go to the office and see my patients. And I remember feeling very lost and confused about what was going on with my body. I didn't really understand how I got there. I mean, I did and I didn't. And when I went to get tested, basically I was, sure enough, my hormones were pretty whacked out, including cortisol levels, estrogen, progesterone, the whole nine. And I remember the doctor handed me a prescription for birth control and for anxiety, which I wasn't struggling with. And I remember looking down at these prescriptions and thinking to myself, this is not how I'm going to get well. And luckily, well before I was a practitioner, I was a biochemist. I had been a biochemist for many years. And the one thing that I was really, really good at was just digging into the research. And if I wasn't going to get the answers at the typical doctor's office, I knew that I could figure them out because I knew the one thing that I knew to be true, because I had women in my practice with similar issues and concerns. But the one thing that I knew to be true was that I was not unique, that if I was dealing with this, there were millions of women dealing with it as well. And I just felt like we needed more advocates. We needed women feeling more confident in knowing what was going on with their bodies. And that just became a big part of my mission. Well, it's been my mission ever since. And I'll tell you what, this journey is so interesting because right when you feel you know everything and you're doing all the right things, you're definitely could be thrown for a loop. And we can talk a little bit about my thyroid story in a little bit, but it's what I just can't imagine doing anything else.
Oh, you're helping so many women, and I think it's so important, the work that you're doing. And there's just not enough quality information out there sometimes to really guide women, a lot of times in the autoimmune field as well. And we know that PCOS can overlap with thyroid issues as well. I just saw today, actually had a patient who just found out she has Hashimoto's, and for the longest time she had struggled with her weight. And she thought, I cannot lose weight. I've tried everything on earth. My hair is falling out. It must be the PCOS. And it's like, lo and behold, she had positive anti-thyroid antibodies. So it's in high TSH. And it wasn't really ever looked at before, I think, because it was just so focused on the women's hormones and not looking at the thyroid. So no matter what she did, she wasn't going to get anywhere really with just diet and exercise unless she adjusts that. So how did you find out that you had Hashimoto's, and did you have warning signs, or is it just something that you discovered in blood work?
Such a great question. You know, that 10 years, and I don't know if what I had done to myself, and not to say that we necessarily do things to ourselves. I don't necessarily blame myself for being who I am, but I definitely probably set the tone for what was to come down the line. And I'll be honest with you, I always kind of ride the line of just I love what I do. I love my passion, my mission. It's not even a career. It's so much more than that. And there are definitely a lot of late nights that we work in order to keep the Dr. Mariza brand running. And so I feel like symptoms for Hashimoto's had come on probably about 3 to 4 years ago, where I started to notice something. I thought it was just my adrenals. It was, my adrenals have been the thing that, or at least what I call HPA axis dysfunction, so hypothalamic pituitary axis dysfunction. So I figured I was just finding myself back into the ground again. And I was like, okay, well, I've been here before. I know how to handle this. And so brain fog was an issue, fatigue was an issue, and all of a sudden I had put on weight that no amount of exercise or eating, and I've dialed down my nutrition in such a great way. Nutrition has been such an area of focus in terms of my research, and nothing that had worked in the past was working. So I went and had a doctor run my thyroid labs. We did probably a panel of 5 thyroids. We did not look at antibodies, but everything looked normal. And I'll be honest with you, I probably was in a bit of denial. It was kind of one of those things where we just wanted to rule it out. Like, okay, well, this isn't it. Let me get back and maybe tweak the program, tweak my diet, tweak the exercise. Maybe I'm over exercising. I'm burning out my adrenals. Maybe that's what's going on here. So I kept trying to fiddle and play, and I felt like I kind of plateaued, but in the weight and a couple of the things, but then other symptoms started coming in. My digestive system really significantly slowed down. My sex drive tanked. And just all of a sudden, a myriad of more symptoms came up that continue to point towards Hashimoto's or hypothyroid. Hypothyroid probably being driven by Hashimoto's. So we finally did a full panel, actually, when I was writing this book right here. And because I was pulling some big nights and some big weeks to get this book done. So I got diagnosed about 1.5 years ago with Hashimoto's and hypothyroid. And it was a hard pill to swallow. It was actually during the time that I was writing this book, and I strongly debated whether I would address it in the book, whether I would have a big part of thyroid health in the book. I chose to stay with the outline that we originally created, but I really wanted to emphasize a lot of reducing inflammation and reducing toxicity in the book. Part 3 of my book has got the 14-day hormone rescue plan. And at that time, I was on a Hashimoto's and thyroid protocol, a food protocol, an anti-inflammatory protocol. So a lot of that was influenced in part 3 of the book. But it wasn't until after the book came out, and I wanted to get through that chapter of my life, that I started talking about the Hashimoto's diagnosis. So it's actually only been about 3 to 4 months that I've been talking about it. But I went full tilt into having this conversation, because the more and more I started talking about my thyroid diagnosis and the Hashimoto's diagnosis, it was amazing to me how many women felt so dismissed, so just put to the wayside, not allowing doctors, not running tests, doctors telling women that it was all in their head. And I knew that I needed to speak out more about it. And what I've been doing, I'm still far from 100%, but I'm doing much better. And it's just one more piece of the puzzle when it comes to our hormones. Probably, as you and I both know, probably one of the most universal and important hormones in the body. I always think about those big all encapsulating hormones like cortisol, insulin, and thyroid, and how they can have such a profound impact on our other hormone systems. And so I'm glad to be having this conversation.
And I think that I was reading the introduction of your book, and the first page when you say, that many women find themselves in a hormonal crisis at some point, and they seek advice from medical professionals who can sometimes downplay the symptoms like depression, anxiety, weight gain, and brain fog. So it's like, oh, you're just getting older, or it's just, perimenopause, or it's this or that.
Or you're a mom, or yeah, exactly. It's all of it's so downplayed. Even our menstrual cramps, think about, and I know we're not going to go down this alleyway too much, but I think about, PCOS, for example, is such a great example of this, how long it takes the average woman to get a full diagnosis for PCOS, after, many, many years of complaining and going to the doctor and doing their best to advocate for themselves. I mean, this is such a great example. And a lot of it, I think, because we've normalized the menstrual cramps, that's a normal process for women, that we just need to suck it up and get through it. And so I love having the conversation around PCOS, because as we know, there's a lot of women who have PCOS right now who just haven't been diagnosed or just don't know what's going on.
Yes, and that's always the question we have, is where do you start? Because there's so many different starting places. A lot of people say, well, just, lose weight and exercise. And that's the worst ever advice sometimes, because it's so difficult. And you have to start even beyond that, I think, at the self-care level and that sort of thing. So when you talk about self-care, what things can we do as women to actually start resetting our hormones and helping with our metabolism in preparation for those things?
Absolutely. Well, and it's a big part of the puzzle, right? I always think about the three big needle movers for women when it comes to our hormones, because hormones ultimately, at the end of the day, are chemical messengers, and they're chemical messengers mediating some very important messages. And they're usually the red flag. I feel like when something isn't right in the body, our hormones are going to be one of the first flags to pull up and say, hey, something isn't right here. And it's really important for us to listen to our bodies. And I think the three things that are so important for us is not only radical self-care and self-love, but also what we're eating, so that we're creating a really happy environment for our gut, our liver, and decreasing inflammation. And then how do we reduce our toxic load? Because I think that toxins are actually one of the biggest reasons why we're finding ourselves in this boat, whether it is our reproductive organs, or it's our thyroid, or it's even our brain and our gut, right? And so, but the one thing that I think is the easiest to shift is going to be the self-care piece, because it's that opportunity to really take care of ourselves and to love ourselves. And where I start with self-care is really, it can be one of two things. Two things I love to start women on. And it may not feel like, well, how is this going to get me to hormone balance? All of this is a journey, and all of these little pieces every single day, we're choosing in to get to that next level. So the two things that I love to educate about, or just inspire women to do, is to, one, have a joy list where you have 10 things on that list that are either paid for or free. And you begin to integrate maybe 2 or 3 of those things on your joy list every single week, so that you are focusing on doing something good for you. The other thing that I feel really moves the needle, the joy list I think is critically important. But what I feel really moves the needle is having a morning routine. Prioritizing yourself before you prioritize anything else, including Instagram and email, right? Because those things are oftentimes other people's priorities. We call our Gmail account, our email account, the other people priority, because that's exactly what it is. It's just emails with people needing something from you. So that first 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of the day is just all about nourishing and loving and focusing on you. And I think when we can set the tone for our day to decide the day that we want to have, we create profound changes in terms of our health and our overall happiness.
And what are some examples that you use for your morning routine as far as self-care goes?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I use, no surprise at all, being an author of a couple essential oil books, is I use essential oils. I start my day with citrus essential oils, either wild orange or tangerine or grapefruit, whatever citrus oil you love. Maybe it's bergamot, the oil of self-love and self-acceptance. I have it by my bedside, and I just take 1 to 2 drops. Citrus oils are they're very generous. They're not very viscous. And so they tend to just come out 2 drops at a time. So take those drops, rub your palms together, take 5 conscious, deep belly breaths. Not only are you oxygenating the brain, you're firing the brain up, and you are boosting happy neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which are great for the morning. So I start my morning immediately with citrus essential oils. I go and I do a big glass of water with apple cider vinegar and lemon juice, kind of to start the digestive system. I do a matcha green tea, and I do a green smoothie. kind of, and it doesn't all happen at once. I'm not like chugging all these things at one time. Just, you can imagine like someone in a race trying to chug these things all at once. But that's happening in the routine. And then I have a journal called Speed Dial the Universe Journal. And it's gratitude. It's my 6 rocks for the day. It's what I want the universe to assist me with, whatever I got on the docket for the coming years. And it's just a really great journal to get my mind right. And I love to move some way, somehow, either whether it's a yoga, like 5 minutes of yoga, or going outside and doing I live on a pretty steep hill. So I just walk that hill a couple times. So just something to just get focusing on my mental state, my physical state, and then making sure that I'm nourishing my body. Those are the big things. And I just feel a lot more grounded and ready to tackle the day.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely. And that smoothie sounds nice too. If maybe we could find a recipe for that.
Oh yeah, girl, I got a ton of recipes in the book, but I can give you a recipe right here. I've been making green smoothies for probably 12 years now. And I will say that when I was first trying to heal my body, I had just discovered green smoothies a little bit before that. And I remember thinking to myself, because I knew how healthy green smoothies were with the fiber and the healthy fats and all the veggies that you were getting. I was like, well, this is just literally an energy, gut support injection. But one of the biggest things that was keeping me and preventing me from getting well, because it took me about 2 to 3 years to really heal the chronic fatigue, like get to a place where I felt like I was rocking my world again. And what was happening is all of us, this happens, it's no perfect science. If anything I've learned on this journey of wellness is that you're just going to always have these little slip ups, these kind of slide backs where you're kind of restarting again. So this was happening. And I was like, what is going on? I'm drinking all the smoothies. I'm doing all the yoga. I'm doing all the things on paper, right? I'm doing the protocols. But what was happening is I had this really, dominating undercurrent, this belief system undercurrent. I kept continuing to say yes to things I didn't want to do. I kept being I was obliging. I was doing a lot of stuff that didn't fuel me up, didn't make me happy, because I had this core belief that my worth as a woman, as a person on this planet was predicated on how much I did for others, how many times I said yes to things, and how much I did not focus on myself. And that undercurrent was the driver for so much of my life and so much of what I did every single day, that until I was able to look that in the face and stare down that disempowering belief, I really wasn't able to get to that place of healing. And my self-care ritual, that morning ritual every day, is a declaration to myself every day that not only am I worth the time to take care of myself, but I'm a bigger priority than all the crap on social, what I mean by that is just being caught up in that, or in my email account, right? That I deserve that time before I go off and give, because that's just it. When you're a healer, or when you're somebody who your number one job is to serve people, girl, it could suck you down the hole. Like you're just serving people 24/7 if you let it. And so that little moment in every morning is such a godsend to me, because it allows me to show up with the energy that I need to have for these women.
That's so important, definitely. And it's a part of physician heal thyself
yes.
in a way. Yes. And I think that some of the listeners out there that, are having, and I want to talk about your book in a second with some of your essential oil recipes for women's health. But I think that right now, I want to ask if anyone's listening with thyroid issues, is it possible to heal your thyroid and Hashimoto's, and how do you go about that? I know there's a lot involved with it, but, for somebody who's realizing, oh, okay, I do have this, am I doomed? Like, what, am I going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life? What would your advice be to them?
Absolutely. It really, really depends. For the heartbreaking thing about something like Hashimoto's and hypothyroid is that right now there's 35 million people in America, mostly women, diagnosed. And there's another 10 plus million people who have no idea, right? The average length of diagnosis from onset of symptoms to a full diagnosis is usually between, I would say, 8 to 10 years. And unfortunately, we can do a lot of damage, right, in that time. So, I find that the majority of the time, and I can speak to myself and a lot of the labs and a lot of the people that I've seen over the years, that's very often, although we can get the Hashimoto's under control, most likely the potential damage of that thyroid may be to a point where you may not ever be able to get off the medications. Now, it could be a lower dose of medications, and definitely you're going to feel significantly better. Given the state of where I'm at, like I'm still not in Hashimoto's remission yet. Even after all this time and all this work that I do every single day, my antibodies are still higher than we want them to be. And as we've looked at labs and we've looked at results, it doesn't look like I'm going to be coming off of medication ever, personally. And that sucks. I'm not going to lie. That super sucks. But it also, in a one way. In another way, I feel so much better, and I am so grateful that I have a team of functional doctors who literally, with precision, exactness, have me exactly where I need to be, kind of like that Goldilocks state. And I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. I would definitely need someone to be monitoring that with me, even as much as I know. I just feel like I need an unbiased person who can look at my labs in a very unbiased way versus myself. But the majority of times I have found, unless it's just a mere conversion from T4 to T3, most of the time, if you've got hypothyroid, and if it's hypothyroid driven by Hashimoto's, you're probably going to, in most instances, stay on the medications, some kind of medication.
Definitely. And so some people might not know this, but who's listening, but if you have normal TSH, it's still possible to have antibodies. It's just that a lot of times they will not check for thyroid antibodies if your TSH is normal. So your thyroid,
which is such BS, let me just tell you, because TSH isn't even a thyroid hormone. It's a pituitary hormone. It's not an output hormone. And so that just, ooh, girl, me angry. So yeah, so it's, I have a full episodes that I talk about, what I always tell women is that you need to demand a full panel. And if you can't get a full panel, there are labs that you can order on your own where you can order, they'll do the full panel. It's a part of that lab. So TSH is never going to give you exactly what you need. You need the full panel. I can give the list of the full panel as well if you like, but yes, that's what you got to be really mindful. And you always want to have antibodies looked at just in case, because there's so many reasons. We live in a time with our level of toxic load and the things that we're exposed to, where our immune system is just trying to get by. It's just surviving, and our immune system is hypersensitive. It's designed for shoot to kill. And there's a lot of molecular mimicry that happens where it accidentally identifies healthy tissue for something that should be foreign in the body. And it's just because our immune system is just confused and haywire, because we just have a lot more stuff in the environment that we haven't had in even 50 years ago. And so it's, if indeed you're starting to see symptoms like low sex drive, thinning hair, fatigue, you're finding your stubborn weight won't move anywhere, brain fog, sluggish digestion, constipation, any of these symptoms sound familiar to what's going on with you, it's time to ask for a full thyroid panel.
For sure. I think that's so confusing sometimes because PCOS symptoms and thyroid symptoms can overlap. And
yeah. And adrenal symptoms can even overlap, right? And the thing is that it's, as a good friend of mine, I had a good friend of mine, Dr. Tom O'Brien, on the other day, and he's like, hormones, and he uses a lot of sports analogies. And I was like, for women, not to say that women don't watch sports, but he was cracking me up. But he was like, basically your hormones are like a baseball team. Right. And those 9 players, which there's more than 9 players, but they're all coordinating. They all have a major impact on one another. And what we see, especially when we track our menstrual cycle, we find out we have something like PCOS. It's important to wonder, well, how did I get this? What else could be triggering or what else could be involved in this? And it's important to be looking at those other hormone systems as well.
And so what would you recommend if somebody is wanting to kind of experiment with essential oils and saying, okay, I'm going to, try, I have all my labs. I know that I'm supposed to be doing this, but I want to do other things that can hopefully, help get me there, and start by something simple that they can do at home. You mentioned one of my favorite blends is the peppermint and orange oil, which I like to diffuse in my office. And sometimes it just gives you a little like I'm awake, it's like an alert sort of smell. But what things can you do topically to help with hormonal balance in general?
Absolutely. I have a menstrual cramp, which is technically a PCOS blend. It's on my phone, which is right over there. And I'll see if I can reach it. Usually it's next to me. But here are my best oils for PCOS. Number one is clary sage. Clary sage is one of the best all-around oils for PCOS. Clary sage fights acne, it relieves anxiety, depression, and stress. It boosts hair growth. And more importantly, it helps to balance hormones and fertility. So I love clary sage. I have a Superwoman blend that is in a 10 ml roller like this that I think is just ultimate for PCOS and hormonal balance. Not only is it great for mood support and great for reducing stress and anxiety, but it's also great for menstrual cramps or just pain in our ovaries or in our uterus. And so you can apply it right over the ovaries and the uterus about 3 inches below the belly button. So that blend is 12 drops of clary sage, because clary sage is I call her the Beyonce of hormone essential oils. So 12 drops of clary sage, 10 drops of lavender, both lower prostaglandins, and they are phenomenal pain relievers. So 10 drops of lavender, 5 drops of cedarwood, which is phenomenal for stress and anxiety and sleep as well. 5 drops of geranium, and we're talking about geranium in just a second. Not only is it great for stimulating the adrenal cortex, so supporting the adrenals, balancing emotions, alleviating anxiety, depression, and improving focus, but it's also great for improving fertility and increasing progesterone. So I love me some geranium, and it is phenomenal for balancing oils on the skin for dealing with acne. So it's 5 drops of geranium and then 4 drops of ylang-ylang. Now, ylang-ylang is not only a phenomenal antidepressant, but it works to balance cortisol and adrenals, so it's great for reducing stress. It's a heart-centered oil, so it's great for emotional healing, and it helps to boost libido. So I love the little 4 drops of ylang-ylang. You top it off with fractionated coconut oil. You can roll it on your wrist. You can roll it in your arms, because essential oils are lipophilic, so they go right into the bloodstream. And let me tell you, that chemistry is so profound, and your body's chemistry is so profound, that there's this amazing intelligence that goes down where your body just knows where to put these oils. That's what makes them so adaptive. But I love what I call path of least resistance, right? If you've got a stomach ache, you're going to put the oils on your tummy, right? If you've got a headache, you want to put the oils wherever the headache is, so that you can actually really feel them working pretty quickly. So in this instance, I do love the Superwoman blend right over the ovaries and the uterus.
Awesome. So we'll have these links to these recipes in our show notes, and for you guys to try. And also, with self-care, if you're doing any fertility massage, that sort of thing, I would think the Superwoman, I love the name, by the way, the Superwoman blend would be really nice to do.
Yeah. I do have an enhanced fertility blend, and I've got also, I know a big thing, we're always so concerned about insulin sensitivity, cravings as well. And cravings are playing a role with stress. It's playing a role with our insulin deregulation, and even our thyroid. Cravings come on for all kinds of reasons. And one of my favorite cravings blend is a combination of peppermint, lemon, ginger, and cinnamon. And cinnamon can be omitted because it's not as it's a more rare oil and it's a little bit more expensive, but cinnamon helps to reduce insulin resistance, and it supports blood sugar balance. So I love that piece as well. But it's just a roller of 10 drops of peppermint and grapefruit, and then 5 drops of the lemon and the cinnamon. And you just top it off with fractionated coconut oil, just like this one too. And you just roll it over your palms and take some deep, deep belly breaths anytime you feel a craving trigger come on. And so that's a great, great blend. I call it, just basically winning the stare down contest with a cupcake or a donut, whatever you find gets you in trouble.
I probably will have listeners dousing themselves with this.
It's
Very nice.
amazing. It's such an effective blend. Lots of research has shown that ginger and peppermint specifically are craving suppressors. And then the other two are equally as great, but I love that cinnamon for that reducing insulin resistance and increasing cell receptor sensitivity.
Perfect. This is awesome. So this is a great toolkit. And even if you're traveling during the holidays, I love those little roller balls that you can just, grab it and go. I have one in every purse or bag or that sort of thing. They're great. And so in your book, you focus a lot on hormonal balance in general. And are you giving essential oil recipes for each particular thing, or also kind of infusing that with some nutritional recommendations as well? Or
Absolutely. Well, the book is broken into three very distinct parts. The first part is, I call it the hormone primer. And that is, I feel more than ever, we deserve to understand what's going on with our bodies. I think knowledge is power. The more that we understand how our bodies work and our hormones work, we can really advocate for what's working, and we can know what's happening in our bodies. So that first part of the book is not only breaking down all the hormone systems and showing you what labs you need to demand and ask for, but also the importance of self-care rituals. And that's all built into part one of the book. Part two is, I interviewed 50,000 women and I asked them, what are the symptoms that you most want to work on? What are the things that are just rocking you and just affecting your day-to-day life? And the biggest hormone symptoms. And I broke each one of those symptoms down in chapters. I explained what is going down with fatigue or sleep or digestive issues. Like, I gave a full rundown, backed up with tons of research, so that we knew. It's one thing to say, okay, I've got digestive issues, or I've got fatigue, tell me what the solution is. I think it's so important to understand, well, why is it happening, or what's going on there? So then there are a ton of oil blends, tons of oil recommendations, and self-care rituals. Then part three of the book, which is probably my favorite part of the book, of all parts of the book, although there's a little something for everybody, that's the full-on 14-day hormone rescue plan. That's got meal plans, tons of recipes. It's got oil recipes as well. It's got the self-care. It's got my 5 pillars. It's basically a 14-day program that you can implement. And although we know that it takes longer than 14 days to make massive change, it's enough of the jumpstart where women start to really feel like, oh my gosh, my wellness journey is possible. I can get well. I can feel better. And I've had thousands and thousands of women do the part 3 of the program, because 14 days is so easy. Anyone can say yes to half a month, right? And we've had women lose up to 15 pounds. We've had women get their energy back, sleep better, less anxiety. I mean, the testimonials that come back from that program are so wonderful. And it's meant to be so easy. And it's predicated and rituals built into all of that as well, just to make it fun. And I think we should get to relish in our wellness journey. We should get to enjoy getting better and feeling better. And that's what that plan is.
Very cool. I can't wait to delve into this, because I think it's just so much information that's usable and you can implement right away. And, if you could think of something that you wish every woman in the world with PCOS knew, what would that be?
Oh, that's such
question.
Yes. That the number one thing is that each and every woman deserves ease and grace. I know that there feels like a time where it's a struggle and it's frustrating, but I'll tell you what, your body is ripe for healing miracles. And it's just that little bit of ease and grace every single day that you get to give yourself that just gets you a little bit closer to where you want to be. So that would be my big mission, because I've been there. I've felt that kind of that place where I'm just like, what do I do with this? And believing that my body was down to heal with me was a big step.
So important. And I hope that everybody listening embraces that and knows that, it's doable. It's doable. I really don't think that there's anything that you can't overcome with hormones. So if you have the right plan in place. And so as far as, if you can give our listeners a parting piece of guidance and just the best way they can connect with you, what would that be?
Absolutely. So the best place to connect with me, if you guys want to come check it out, the podcast, Essentially You podcast, because this what you're seeing here is what you're going to get more of. I bring on a lot of amazing experts to talk about women's healthcare topics twice a week. So that would be a great place to come connect with me. I mean, clearly the book is everywhere books are sold, but I really, that standing message is that, that deserving to focus on yourself. I would say that if there was one thing that I would impart is just add one little self-care ritual to your day every single day. That could be grabbing an oil and breathing it in. It could be a new start to your morning routine where you say, you know what? I get this first 10 minutes. I'm just going to drink tea, or maybe I'm going to drink coffee, whatever it is, where that is just my time, my moment. I think that the self-care is the one thing that we're missing. And I believe that self-care is a non-negotiable, and it's absolutely necessary for our survival. I think that's where we're at today.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all of your information and wisdom, and hope that all of you guys check out Dr. Mariza's podcast. I know that I will be listening to it on my drive to my office, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week and takes time to just check in with themselves and try some of these essential oil recipes we talked about too. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great week. Thank you, Dr. Mariza.
Thank you.